Hi, this month I'm looking at how to prepare for a new role, and I'm delighted to be joined by Lorraine Gibson to share some of her insights in terms of when she's done this through her career. So, welcome, Lorraine. How are you?
Very well, David. Thank you for inviting me. Good to see you.
Oh, pleasure. And thank you for joining us because you've had a number of key career changes in your career to date. You started 23 years ago as the senior marketing manager at KPMG before moving into more of a legal environment with Eversheds as the head of marketing in the London office and in corporate group. Then you had a period self-employed as a business development consultant before moving to DLA Piper as the head of practice and group marketing business development. Now, for the last 3 years, you've been at Herbert Smith Freehills as a business development director for the UK, the US, and EMEA, and also as the exec with specific responsibility around race and holding the organisation accountable to its commitments. So, lots of changes there over your career. Three questions for you, if I may, in terms of your experience, in terms of sharing your insights. And the first one is, how do you prepare for a new role?
Good starter question. Uh, well, I think from my perspective, what I've always tried to do is take it back to the interview stage. That's where the preparation starts for me. You know, assuming that you really want the role, then that's where I do most of my research, identifying the priorities in the organization and how those priorities could filter down into the role that I'm going to have, but also looking at team members, key stakeholders as well, and trying to get a sense of what their motivations are and what their priorities could be. But also it's quite important when you're starting a new role to think about how you're going to interact with your peers at that level and who within that grouping are going to be your cheerleaders or your sponsors, and thinking through what their priorities might be and identifying synergies to work together on, so that you're not just delivering within the confines of your role, but you're also looking broadly across the organization or the firm that you're working in to identify other areas where you can demonstrate the credibility that you hold and you've developed over the years, and establish good relationships across vertical and horizontal levels.
Brilliant. It's interesting actually because there's so much there which is about preparing around the relationships that exist in the organisation as much as the practical skills, etc. So as you're moving into those more leadership positions, you're thinking much more about how you influence, etc. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that. So just moving on, in terms of as you progress through those roles, what are the key lessons that you've learned along the way in terms of preparing?
Well, you know, if you've got the benefit of, or the luxury of time, immersing yourself in understanding the organization from all aspects. So whether that be a series of meetings with people that know the business well, or whether that is with regards to conversations with your line manager, with your boss, and understanding what they are really trying to achieve for the function that you're working within or the department, and actually where their areas of development or pain points are. And so getting that breadth of understanding from every aspect of the business, whether it's key stakeholders or your line manager, and also the team. So moving from, that managerial position where you're focused a lot on executing and delivering, and sometimes running around like a headless chicken, moving through to a leadership role, which is thinking more strategically and identifying within your leadership team the strengths and weaknesses of those individuals, and how you can kind of, I suppose, and not just empower them, but bring them along with you so that they have a very clear understanding of, of my goals, of my priorities, and where they sit within that, and how they can actually work together as a team to achieve what I'm trying to achieve, and therefore what my boss is trying to achieve. I think that's probably one of the key learnings. It's moving from kind of being part of a team and doing the doing, and setting aside. It's very easy and very comfortable to just step back into that. But as you move up in leadership roles, you've got to put that to one side, and you need to find ways to motivate and inspire others so that they can do what needs to be done, but you're giving them the guidance and the direction and the priorities, an interpretation of the priorities from the organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's that in that transition between the managerial and the leadership role, and the part you play in terms of your part of the vision, I think, is a real challenge for many people as they move through their career, and that's a key crunch point. So thank you for that. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, I think it's just to add to that. I think it's really important to get absolute clarity from the leaders of the business that you're in, so you can take that and interpret it for the team that you're leading or the area that you're working in. And that piece is crucial to really extolling that leadership role, is to get real clarity from the top.
Yeah. So you play your part in sharing the strategy, the vision, the direction, etc., and communicating it down in the business. Brilliant. Final question. So, in the role that you pick up in terms of the additional responsibility as the executive with responsibility for race at Herbert Smith Freehills, what did you do in terms of preparing for that role?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's quite it's a challenging role in many ways. It's a complex and very sensitive area, and it's probably in the last year and a half that organizations have really started to focus on it. I've been part of those conversations for quite some time, probably after the first year of joining Herbert Smith Freehills and sitting on the UK and the EMEA exec, getting involved in those conversations. And I think it's because it's so multifaceted, it was incumbent upon me to get an understanding of all of those facets when you're thinking about race and ethnicity and what it means within the organization, but also societally what it means, and the degree of influence you can play, not just within the firm, but also in society at large. And so the preparation, in preparing for that particular role, there's a balance that I had to find between actually doing my day job and taking on this responsibility. So that was the first thing I needed to think about, as to how I was going to carry out that duty and not take my main sight off the key role at hand. And also ensuring that my key stakeholders within the organization were comfortable with what I was proposing to do in that space. But the first piece is, speaking to a multitude of people within the firm to get that base level of understanding of where we are currently, where we're trying to get to, and what does the industry at large look like, and the challenges outside of the firm. So there was a lot of education, a lot of research, and a lot of discussions with many individuals in preparing for that role. And then it gets to the point whereby you've got to then convert that knowledge that you've grasped over a series of sessions, convert that into something quite impactful for the UK exec, which is my audience, and influencing them in a way that is quite sensitive to how they're feeling about the subject. So knowing those individuals from the 2 or 3 years that I've worked with them, getting an understanding of what's important to them, but also trying to convert that into something meaningful for them. So it moves it from, and it's a little bit like moving from the managerial to the leadership role, because we can all create different activities and tasks, but it's ultimately about what is this going to mean for the organization or for the firm that you're working for, and what difference is it going to make. It will make a huge difference to many people in terms of the members of staff, and that is important. But also for that exec body, for them to get a better appreciation of the impact it will make on them as well, and how, not only just how I show up, but how they need to show up. And so it's being very confident in the subject matter, but also being a strong influencer as well. And that's probably the most critical thing when you're thinking about embedding or driving something like race and ethnicity within an organization, because it's a huge change.
Yep. Brilliant. And I think what's interesting is the parallels are still the same. There's still that preparedness. They're still trying to work out, where are we now? Where do we want to get to? Who do I need to influence? Where are they, etc. And so still very much common ground in terms of how you prepare for all of those roles, including the responsibility on race one. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is very much so. And, professional services and particularly law firms, they're very much into the detail. The firm that I work for is a very strong disputes practice. So, they like the debate. And so being prepared for that, and not just coming up with the next big thing, but having that strategic lens on it as well is critical to that audience that I'm speaking with.
Well, thank you, Lorraine. I hope people have found this useful, as always. If this has raised any questions around your preparation for a new role, or any questions that you might have around coaching, then as always, please get in touch, and I'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you very much, Lorraine.
Thank you, David. See you soon.
Bye now.
Bye.